This is episode 29 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview-style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generously sponsored by Think Global. Think Global is a business advisory firm working with women entrepreneurs around the globe to scale their businesses to the next level. Today, I'd like to welcome Alissa Barry. Alissa is the founder of Cars from a Women's Perspective web community and TV show. As an automotive journalist, she got tired of the phrase women in cars to mean half-naked chicks posing with luxury cars. Being a spicy Italian woman armed with a TV production background, her TV show breaks the old stereotype by taking women off the hood and putting them behind the wheel. Alissa, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is so much fun.
So I absolutely love that line of her TV show breaks the old stereotype by taking women off the hood and putting them behind the wheel. So when you were in automotive journalism, and we can just kind of think of what we see. And when we look back, I think most of us would agree that we generally see really beautiful women on top of the car more than we see behind the wheel.
Absolutely. I think it's something that's been happening for a very long time. I think, men and women would both agree. I don't think a lot of guys have any complaints about that. There's just a shift taking place in our, call it global consciousness or whatever you want, just our general attitude about how we want to treat each other as humans. I think it's becoming really old school and like a stale mentality to think that way anymore. So, I have this passion for cars, and I do have this TV background, and I started doing Googles and trying to find my people, my people in the car community. So I went online. I was like, all right, there's got to be some clubs out here or something it was just this old school stuff that's kind of like a joke these days,
How did you get involved in the automotive industry? Where did that passion come from?
Oh boy, that probably started when I was about 7 or 8. My dad came home with a Porsche, just randomly one day. He just, I come from a 100% Italian family, and so it's like we have a lot of passion about a lot of things. And my dad was very much like the patriarch of the family, and he was always making these decisions on behalf of the family. And one day he just came home with this car. We didn't even know he was doing it. Maybe my mom knew, but me and my sister were like, oh my God, what is this spaceship in our driveway?
That's so fancy. That's not like Dad coming home with a Ford Taurus. That's I
know, right? I had never seen anything like that before, and neither had my sister. So we were like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
I immediately became in love with this car. And Katrina, I don't know if you remember that, it was one of the first cars that had the pop-up headlights.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. Oh,
right. So it had this mystical sort of spaceshipy feel to it. Yeah. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. And from then on, I was infatuated with cars.
Oh, that is so cool. For some reason, I picture in my head sort of like the DeLorean or whatever it's called on Back to the Future, where the doors open upward. I thought
smoke comes out.
Yeah, as a 7, 8-year-old kid, that must, obviously that experience has stuck with you. So it meant something, and what a surprise and cool thing. So you thought the car was cool, and from there you're just like, hey, cars are awesome. Or how did that continue?
You nailed it totally.
Yeah,
it left such an impression on me. Yeah. Oh. And it's funny because my sister, my older sister, thought it was cool, but I was the one that went nuts with it. From then on, I was the girl with Lamborghini posters on her wall.
Wow.
When I was old enough to drive to the mall, I would go pick up model cars at Spencer's and put them on my shelf.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it just kind of grew from there, and it was something that I always had in the back of my mind. And as an adult, I thought, sometimes we can talk ourselves out of stuff or say that something's not important even though we like it. But as an adult, cars were still really important to me, and I was always thinking about them. And finally I said to myself, there's nothing wrong with following this and doing something with it. And that's when I started to pursue automotive journalism, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. So how do you pursue automotive journalism? To me, and probably most of our listeners, many of us are not even thinking that that's like a field or a path. So are most automotive journalists hired by like the big car companies, or like how does that work?
That's an excellent question. I get that one a lot. I suppose there's an unlimited amount of ways that you could pursue something like this.
Okay.
There's like one correct answer. But, one way would be just like you said, to contact some big name publishers and submit an article and just contact them and see if they're accepting submissions and writers and things like that. That's an excellent way to start. For me, I just kind of started writing.
Okay.
I just kind of wanted to find my voice and started writing about cars. And the way that they would come out is in lifestyle segments. It was like, how do I feel about this car? Where would I go in this car? Who would I pick up? What kind of lifestyle would I have? And from there, it grew into the TV show that I produced. But to answer your question, I took the route of just starting to write, and I would write for a couple of magazines around town, and that was fine. But then we started to have a little bit of a clash about the voice of it, because in my opinion, like, those publications weren't owned by women, so they wanted me to write more like a guy and have that tone. But that wasn't authentic for me. So I think I did it for a little while just to kind of get the experience and the exposure of it. And then I said, forget this. So I went out on my own, and that's when I started the Cars from a Woman's Perspective website.
What's your favorite part of being an entrepreneur? And congrats to you. What's your favorite part of being an entrepreneur?
Oh boy. Probably, I love this question. This is so personal. I love creating from the inside out. I mean, I feel like entrepreneurs, that's why we're drawn to being entrepreneurs, is because we have something inside of us and we have something to say and to share, and we want to be able to express it in a specific way. And for me, it's very much the same thing.
Oh, that's so interesting. I think you're right. I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to that. They had something, some mission, some passion, and a lot of times it's also sort of what you were seeing when you worked for that other publication where there was a clash on what the voice is. For me, when I started this company, it was right at the shift of traditional marketing to digital marketing. And for me, there was a clash where I felt like digital was so much more the way to go in the future. And I really just wanted to pursue that. Where the company I worked for was like, no, I think we need to stick with billboards and radio. And it just like, fine, that's fine for them. But it wasn't fine for me. And so I think you're right on that point.
I completely agree. We're speaking the same language.
Yeah. So, okay. So when you started this, I think and I don't know if you've had this challenge, but I think one of the biggest challenges in starting something is that simple piece of what you mentioned earlier is, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find my people. Where are my people? And so what did you, when you set up shop, you're like, okay, I'm doing this, going gung-ho with it. Did you find your people, or what challenges have been a part of that journey to get your people to watch the show and be a part of this community?
I feel like it was a little disheartening when I did my first search, because I wasn't expecting this backlash of like, oh, the only value women have are to be in their bathing suits on the hood. I was really insulted by it at first and taken aback. And then when I realized that that's kind of what's out there, I realized I had to do a deeper dig, and because I knew that I wasn't the only one who felt this way. So we were out there, we weren't publicized.
Right.
So when I started to do a deeper dig, I would do things that I was just naturally drawn to do. Like, I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to meet people. So I would go out in my community and make friends with people that fix cars, and people that restore cars, and people that sell cars. And I would just say, hey, I see this clash, and I don't feel like people feel this way about women anymore. I mean, hello, like, women make all of the buying decisions in the household, including cars. So like, marketers and anybody are doing like a huge disservice by having this image of women. So
yeah, that is such a true point too.
Yeah.
We've bought, I've been married almost 8 years. I think we've bought 3 or 4. We go through a lot of cars. We're very hard on them, but we bought probably 3 or 4, and I think I've bought them all just in the past 8, 9, 10 years.
Yes. And I hear that story over and over again, and it's the truth.
Yeah.
But, it's like, but when I would go out in the community and have these conversations with people, they would agree with me, though. That was the thing that I really found interesting, was that there was a disconnect between how people felt and what was being publicized. So, I did finally find my people. I had to do it in a more grassroots way, but I think that's what makes it cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. What would you say? So the journey of being an entrepreneur, I think there are so many us, and I think it's an exciting time and a liberating time and awesome. But there are, in my experience, there have always been some downs too, where it's like, gosh, why, like, to get to that next level, or, to get more exposure or build specific relationships or something like that. I'd love to know how you get through some of the downs and how you kind of maintain your vision and mission in those harder times.
I feel like the only way I can answer that is just to say, like, it really does come from within. You have to want it. You have to really believe in what you're doing, Like even you with the digital marketing, you didn't try it for 6 months and then go, I think I was wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think I should pursue this.
About a year in, there were some tears. I'm like, I've been wrong. but no, our company actually celebrates its 5th birthday this summer. So I think we're good. But I think you're right, though. I mean, if it was just, hey, I'm going to try this, I'm going to kind of dip my toe in the water and see what happens, I don't think it would have worked. And especially not in year 1, because year 1 was hard. And it was a really sort of vulnerable time too, where like I got to see all of my weaknesses, like, just lined up front and center, basically. And when you're looking at all of your weaknesses and seeing, okay, this isn't going because of that, you don't see any of your strengths. And so it wasn't until we gained a little bit of momentum where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really good at this thing. I should do a lot more of this one spot rather than any of these other things that I'm just not good at. And I think that's when we really started to grow, was when I could see my strengths again.
There you go.
Yeah. So so I would love to know, so a couple things. So did you have any great advice when you were starting out, or do you have any great advice that you would share with other people who are starting?
The biggest one for me is I'm a big advocate of following your heart. Mm-hmm. I think that every single person on the planet has very specific gifts. And I'm, a big believer that we're stronger together than we are apart. Like, I'm not a huge fan of competition and all this kind of stuff. And on the racetrack, it's a different story. I like driving fast and things like that. But in general, I think us as humans work much better when we're working together than when we're trying to compete with each other. But a big part of that, I feel like, is just following your heart and doing the things that you're pulled to do. Like, use your talents. They're not a mistake. Like, when you have something that you want to go after, it's probably because you can make a massive impact on the world, and that's the way I like to live my life. And that's the way I like to encourage people to do that if they want to.
Yeah. One of my favorite authors right now is Brene Brown, and I think she has like 3 books on the New York Times bestseller list simultaneously. Uh, which I think is pretty impressive. But one of the things that she says that I think so much relates to what you do is don't try and win over the haters. You're not a jackass whisperer. And so I love, have you heard that before?
I love that. No, that's great.
I mean, that's so true. And I love that you went out and you found your people and you found that like so many people relate to your perspective more than they do the traditional advertising perspective. And so, well, I kind of wanted to get your take on that, but it sounds like you wholeheartedly agree. So
I have to look her up now. You just inspired me to learn about her. That's great.
She's awesome. I'll send you, her name's Brene Brown. I'll send you a link to a couple of the books I've read from her. Well, okay. So she's great. She's super candid and authentic. She talks about vulnerability and daring greatly. And I mean, she's just really, she's really on a great path, and she's inspiring so many people. And I think she's really inspiring people to live wholeheartedly. And just what you were saying about your talents aren't a mistake. Focus on those and use those. And it's very, very aligned. So maybe I see a book in your future.
That would be something. I would love to do that. You know, she kind of reminds me of this author, Jen Sincero.
Okay.
I actually have this book right here. It's called, literally, You Are a Badass.
Oh, well, that makes you feel good. Oh, you go get it. Okay.
And the subtitle is How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. I think 2 authors would probably be best friends if they ever met in real life.
Probably. Maybe we should set up like a matchmaking session. That's awesome. Well, I'll have to check that one out. Thanks for sharing that. That's well, so on that note, okay, so if you had a list of books or TED Talks or videos or something like that that really inspire you or that you just love as a woman entrepreneur, what are those and what would you share with our audience?
Definitely Jen Sincero's book.
Okay.
I'm really drawn to positive, upbeat messages that say, you know what, go out and do it. You are good enough. She's at the top of my list. There's a book by a guy, David Nagel. I think it's called Millions of Mirrors that I really recommend as well. Okay. And then there's a speaker, Grant Cardone. Mm-hmm. He probably has like a ton of books out, but his whole philosophy is 10xing your life, like just showing up and being awesome. Yeah. And I had an opportunity to hear him speak recently, and you know, he's got a billion takeaways, but one of them was he has this attitude of who's got my money. Oh. And he doesn't come from a place of you know, if we have something that is a product that we're offering to the world, you can guarantee there are people, businesses, and brands that are out there looking for exactly what you offer. Right. So who's got my money today? Which one of those people are we going to connect with and act and like change the way that?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And you're right. Gosh, there are just so many people to connect with. And I feel like because we're in the social media space, I feel like, it almost feels like our work is never done. There's always more people to connect with. I mean, you and I met over Twitter, right? Like just over one simple tweet that I can't remember if you put it out or I put it out, but the other thought it was interesting and we just sparked up conversation. And it's like that happens a million times a day, you know, and it just, there's always more people to connect with. That's really great. So as we kind of get to the end and wrap up here, I would love to know what trend or hot topic is on your radar that you think we'll all know about in about a year from now.
Oh, as far as the automotive industry goes, I definitely think autonomous cars are going to be more of a buzz. I feel like they're kind of working it out right now and like figuring out how people feel about it, and it feels kind of like the Jetsons to most of us, you know. But,
with all the driving,
I feel like there's going to be more.
Yeah, with all
Yeah.
that I do, I would happily take a Jetsons car. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's interesting.
I'm ready for that
Yeah,
now.
it's funny you mentioned the Jetsons though, because growing up in the 80s, I truly believe like now 2016 would be Jetsons. Like we would have flying hover cars and so anyway, we're getting closer and closer. I don't know that I need a flying hover car just yet, but an autonomous one might be cool. Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time today.
Thanks, Katrina. This was fun.
Oh, good. You're welcome.